Hey folks, I'm Mirenda. I'm an advocate for constructive debate. I really hope that by fostering conversations between people with differing views, we can all grow. I don't have the same energy that I normally have. I'm sick, but I still felt compelled to make today's video because police brutality is weighing heavy on my mind. And the fact that we are not united, that we are divided when we discuss it, we're divided by our own interests and can't come together is a problem. But I'll address that later. I'm going to go at this very gently and try and be very clear because I have absolutely no interest in fostering a debate about all lives matter and Black Lives Matter. That's not the crux of this conversation. What I'm going to discuss today is police brutality, who it affects, and how we can go about changing it. Within the law, police brutality is the use of undue or excessive force. Now that includes physical or verbal harassment, physical or mental injury, property damage, and death, even though that should be called murder. We're talking about murder. Currently, police brutality has become very, very obvious when we look at what's happening during the peaceful protests with the tear gas and the assault of people who are just standing on the side of the road minding their business, or people who are just busy being homeless, sitting in a wheelchair, who get shot in the face by a rubber bullet. The current acts of police brutality are incredibly reflective of what happened during the civil rights movement. It just all looks the same. And this happened in my parents' generation and my generation, and I don't want it happening when my grandchildren are running around. Police can murder American citizens with impunity. They can murder us, any of us, and it just goes unpunished. Police brutality affects all communities. For instance, in 2017, NYPD detectives Richard Hall and Edward Martins, they raped an 18-year-old girl while she was in custody. Now, they only received probation and they won't serve any jail time. Also, police brutality, it affects all marginalized groups disproportionately, and that includes the mentally ill. For instance, in Dallas, Tony Temple called the police for help. He stated he had mental health issues, and he was asphyxiated in a very similar way to Mr. Floyd. He pleaded for help 30 times as the police just made jokes about him while they just took the life from his body. This is all exhausting. Statistically, Black people in the United States experience the highest rate of police brutality. Most state police forces kill Black people at a higher rate per capita than white people. DC has a Black population of nearly 50%, yet 88% of all police killings were against Black Americans. As an aside, for those of you who think that police brutality is not a problem, that this is not a race issue, and that all of this is just being fanned by the flames of media, like somehow the media has an agenda just to make things worse. It's not the media. We African Americans have been expressing outrage for years. Protests have erupted many times since the American Civil Rights Movement. Now let's consider what happened in 1973, just 5 years after Martin Luther King's murder. Clifford Glover, he was 10 years old, and he and his grandfather were just walking down the street minding their business. They were approached by plainclothes police officers with guns. Now, they didn't know that these were police officers, so they began to run. They thought they were about to be robbed, and the police shot Clifford in the back. He was 10. In recent times, we keep seeing the murder after murder after murder of Black people in the news. In 2014 in Cleveland, Ohio, Tamir Rice was 12 years old. He was just playing with a gun in the park. He wasn't causing any trouble. He wasn't threatening anybody. And someone called the cops. Within 2 seconds of the officers arriving, they shot him dead. There was no investigation. They didn't question Tamir. He wasn't threatening them with the gun. They arrived and they shot him. This year with Breonna Taylor, she was just sleeping in her bed. Just sleeping in her bed. The police had the wrong address. They were looking for somebody that was already in custody. They were in plain clothes, and they just burst in the house without announcing anything. They didn't announce they were police, nothing. Breonna's boyfriend hopped out of the bed, and he saw just men rushing in his house with guns, so he popped off a shot, and the police shot Breonna 8 times. We have protested every single one of these murders. The media has acknowledged in some way every one of these murders. But Mr. Floyd happened. The video of Mr. Floyd's murder just took over social media, and the mainstream media could not ignore it. It was so heinous and so awful, it just resonated with people around the world. Clearly, this isn't just a systemic racism issue. It's also about an institution that prioritizes the well-being of its officers, their well-being, not just their lives, their well-being, above the lives of the American citizens they're supposed to protect. As I said earlier, I made this video in the spirit of unity. Police brutality affects us all of us. Each and every special interest group needs to unite against systemic racism, including Black Lives Matter, advocates for the homeless, those with disabilities, mental health advocates, and everyone, just everyone. We should come together. We need to peacefully protest responsibly. Whenever we can, in whatever form that takes. We can do that from home by donating to special causes. We can support businesses who advocate with their action for an end to police brutality, or marching in the streets. Whatever way you can protest, you do you, as long as you do something.
No justice, no peace. No justice, no peace.
Let me be super clear. No one is only asking for protection for Black folks. We want everybody to enjoy freedom and liberty and safety and justice. We, African Americans, or those who support the Black Lives Matter organization, not just the slogan, the organization. The organization and the slogan are two separate entities that are just connected. We believe that by advocating for an end of police brutality against Black folks, everybody benefits, that the Tony Tempas of the world will benefit. We need to unite and seek justice for all. I was inspired to make this video because someone recently reminded me of Fred Hampton. He is a civil rights leader who the FBI and the Chicago PD admitted to both slandering and assassinating. They thought he was becoming too big a threat because he was uniting marginalized groups to fight systemic oppression. I hope this helps. I hope this brings you a little bit of clarity. I hope this inspires you to reach out to people that you think might be different from you and make a change. Make a difference. I'll chat to you soon.